Hi there, everybody. We are officially live for our first Facebook Live of this year's Knitmas Mystery Knit Along, and I am going to just sort of give us some time to see, well, basically to let people arrive and say hello. So if you're here, say hi so that I know that this is working. This is new to me. I've done Facebook Lives a couple times before, but it's been a really long time, and I just want to make sure that it is working. So if you are out there and can say hi, that would be fantastic. All right, thanks, Colleen. That must mean that it is working. So we're trying this out. Hi, Angela. We're trying this out to see if it is a good way for me to convey some information to you guys about Knitmas, and we collected some questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer those. But if you have any other questions, please pop them up in the comment section, and I'll try to catch them as they go by. Oh, I love seeing where everybody's from. All the way from Maine to California already. We've got coast to coast in the US covered. Hi, Aberdina. Hi, Maria. Hi, Julia. Hi, Karen. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Donna. Hi, Martha. Letitia. Oh, it's so good to see you all here. So I'm going to hop right in because I know a lot of people are going to be watching this after the fact because we are a really widespread group and this is a really busy time of year. So thank you for showing up if you're here because I know that there are a lot of things going on right now. So first things first, this is for the 12 Days of Knitmas Mystery Knit Along. And what this knit along is this a way to fill up that really sort of strange space between Christmas and getting back into the swing of things in the new year. I know for me it's always feels like I'm a little bit lost and trying to figure out what to do with myself. So when we created this knit along, that was kind of the goal, was to fill that space and see if there were other people out there that felt the same way. And turns out that there are. And the more that I read about this time and space, I found out that there's actually names for it in different cultures and communities. I saw one woman refer to it as the hush. And I thought that sounds appropriate. And then another, where was it? I wrote it down somewhere. Somebody referred to it as the days outside of time. And that makes sense too. But for us, it's the 12 days of Knitmas, and we fill it with our favorite thing, which is knitting, and it brings some light to these long, dark days, especially for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. So thank you for being here and being part of this community that brings so much joy to this time of the year. And I love seeing lots of you folks from Maine, South Dakota, Michigan, California, West Virginia, all over. So I'm gonna quickly answer some of the most common questions that we get about Knitmas. And a lot of those questions have to do with yarn and color choices. So one of the really fun parts of Knitmas is that we do put together kits that we offer for this project, but we also like to provide information so that you can stash dive or so that you can go shopping at your local yarn shop and find the perfect yarn for you. So this year I'm working with a Surrey silk from Emma's Yarn and also with Practically Perfect sock yarn from Emma's Yarn. So the Practically Perfect is a fingering yarn, a fingering weight yarn, and the Surrey silk, it is called the lace weight, and that has caused a little bit of confusion here and there for folks who are substituting yarn, but it's called the lace weight, but it can knit up to the same gauge as a fingering weight. So if you are substituting for the Surrey silk. It's a really fluffy fiber. So this is an example of the Surrey silk. And you can see when I pull it apart how those fibers cling to one another, and they really fill up the space in between. So if you are substituting for the Surrey silk, if you're not using a Surrey silk, a mohair silk also works beautifully. But you can also just substitute with a standard fingering weight yarn, and your project will still be absolutely beautiful. It will change the overall feel of it a little bit, because part of the feel is the textural changes from the Surrey silk to the fingering, but that's fine. It's still going to be a beautiful project. I just wanted to explain about the Surrey silk being lace weight, but you don't want to use a standard lace weight yarn to substitute for the Surrey silk, because it will most likely be too fine to provide the gauge and the feel that you're looking for. So that was one of our big questions that we got. The next one is colors. And I generally like to say this: if you are a fan of color work that really, really pops, where you can see the difference from one stitch to the next color-wise, then make sure you have really high contrast colors to choose from. If you're a fan of a more subtle look, then you can go with a softer contrast. A great way to figure out if your yarn has contrast is by photographing them next to each other in black and white. And this will help you tell what the contrast is. It doesn't tell the entire story though, so you also have to use your judgment. Another great way to figure this out is to knit up a little swatch. I know not everybody loves swatching, but some people do love swatching, and it's part of the fun for them. It's also a great way to see how your yarns are going to work together. So you can swatch them up. And another way that you can do this is to make what's basically, it's like a swatch stick. So you aren't actually knitting, you just take anything that you can wrap your yarn around. You can do it around a piece of cardboard. Sometimes I do it around like a gauge stick, and you just wind your yarn one next to the other to see what they're going to look like next to one another. And this way you don't have to knit them up. So it doesn't give you your gauge information, but it does give you an idea of what your colors are going to look like next to one another. Now this year, so the reason why people are always curious about the color combos is because it's a mystery knit along. So that is one of the fun parts, and also one of the challenges of a mystery knit along, is that I can share some information, but I can't share all of it without spoiling the mystery. And I will say this: we've been doing this. This is our 5th annual 12 Days of Knitmas Mystery Knit Along. Can you believe it? And we just see consistently great projects. And it's because it just generally works out. You choose as you go along. And I don't know, maybe it's just some kind of Knitmas miracle, but they always turn out beautifully. So just follow your heart and remember that it's just knitting. And if you hate it, you can rip it out and re-knit that section again. I don't think that that's going to happen, but we all knit differently, right? And some people are just, they don't like it, they don't think anything of it. They tear it out and they just do it over again. And some people think, I'll learn to love that, or that'll be a gift. But there are no hard and fast rules. It really just comes down to what we were talking about earlier. If you like really vivid contrast, make sure that there are at least 3 or 4 out of those 6 contrast colors that you're choosing that have really, really high contrast to your main color. And you also want to have some contrast within those contrast colors. Another change this year was that we have more, well, we've had more contrast colors in the past, but we have more this year than last year. So we are working with 6 contrast colors this year. And one of my hopes is that it just gives you a little bit more flexibility to really be the boss of your own knitting as we go through and choose this. You have a little bit more wiggle room yardage wise if you're basing your kit on the kits that I curated with Emma's yarn. So you have more yardage to play with. There's much less chance of you having to play yarn chicken at all. And you also have the ability to choose between multiple contrast colors depending on what the section is that we're working that day. So I hope that that helps some of you out when you're making these choices. Another question that we received was, can I use variegated or speckled yarn? Heck yeah. If you look at some of the kits, you'll see that they do have variegated and speckled yarn. And I'm trying to think. If you used all variegated or speckled yarn, obviously it's going to look much different than if you just used all single colors or tonals. But that's the fun of it. Like, if you love speckled yarn, like, go for it. Make it with all the speckles. It's gonna be awesome. And if that is just not your thing, then don't do it. But here's where it gets fun. Every once in a while you think, oh, I just don't know. And then you go for it and you try it and you think, oh, that's fantastic. I really didn't think I was going to be into this, but I just learned something new about myself and what I enjoy. That's the other really fun thing about knitting in a group like this, is because you get to see other people try things that you would never do and realize like that it's pretty fantastic. So I hope that you are interacting with one another in the group. I mean, I already see that so much. It's such a wonderful group and everybody helps each other so much and supports each other. It's fantastic. But watch them and see what they're doing, and, you know, maybe consider something that somebody else is trying and loves that you never would have considered before. So that sort of, I think that covers most of the yarn questions. I'm just going to look at my list really quick. And another question was, can I use fewer than 6 contrast colors? Yes, you can. If you are using fewer than 6 contrast colors, you're going to need, depending on how few, you're going to need to have more yardage of each color. So say you decided that you only wanted to use 2 contrast colors, and honestly that's the fewest, that's the least amount of contrast colors that I would recommend, is 2. You're obviously going to need more than a mini skein of each of those colors. So just take that into consideration when you're choosing. But yes, you can use fewer than 6 contrast colors. Can you use more? Absolutely. You can use a different one every single time a contrast color pops up. If you're trying to bust your stash and like clear some of those yarn scraps out, go for it. I can't wait to see it. I think it'll be really fun. You definitely have the option to use more than 6 colors, less than 6 colors. But when I wrote it for 6 colors. So it's okay to, you know, do modifications. We have a lot of folks who make wonderful modifications. They leave out sections that they don't like, and they substitute with them with sections that we've already done that they loved. So they'll repeat a section if they don't love what's coming up. I've had people that said, I think this is going to be too long for me. So they left out a section, or they said, you know, I'd really like this to be much longer. So they just kept knitting at the end of the day and add and maybe doubled up on their sections to make a longer piece. This pattern is pretty adaptable in that sense. So if that's what makes you happy when you're knitting, like, go for it. And we'll be cheering you on from the sidelines here. What else? I'm I'm going to scroll back up in these questions really quickly. Okay. So Karen Smith, thank you. Will the directions make suggestions for the contrasts between CC1 to CC6? Yes. So this year what I did in each day is I added a color guidance section so that you will be able to make choices based on that color guidance. Since everybody's color combination is different, since most people are making their own combos, I try to just provide general instructions on the colors so that you can make the choice that makes sense for you. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please chime in and let me know, and I will try to expand on that. I'm so excited to see so many people joining in for the first time too. Scotland, holy cow. That's awesome. Welcome. Colleen's holding Surrey double to knit a cowl right now, and she said it's like knitting with a cloud. It is so soft. If you didn't read the main Knitmas page, one of the reasons I was so excited to use Surrey is because I love mohair silk, but it makes me itchy and it sticks in my contacts and it makes my nose itch and stuff. And Surrey does not do that, which is pretty common for a lot of people. A lot of people who are, if you're sensitive to mohair, Surrey is generally much easier to work with. I find that it also sticks less. Sometimes if you're trying to frog mohair, it likes to stick to itself. The Surrey doesn't seem to do that quite as much. It really is lovely to knit with. Please bear with me while I just scroll through these a little bit further. Yeah, Angelique, same thing, sensitive to mohair. So the Surrey is it's a fantastic alternative. What else? So I was going to mention, I know some people were, because they hadn't worked with this type of yarn before, so I actually pulled this out. This isn't one of the colors from the kits, but it is Emma's yarn Surrey. And as you saw, it comes in a skein, it's all wound up in its little package, so when you go to wind it, you want to, take it out and let it drop and just kind of give it a chance to loosen up. And you might want to give it a few snaps. You'll see a little bit of the fuzz fly in there. But what it does is it opens that skein up a little bit. So when you go to put it, around your Swift, if you're going to use a Swift to wind this up, just open it all the way up, nice and wide like that, before you put it on your Swift. If you're not using a Swift, if you're using a chair, you can put this around the backs of the chairs before you hand wind it. But really try and open it up before you snip off these bits of yarn or these bits of string that are holding it together. And that's gonna help prevent it from like sticking to itself as much and from getting tangled as you try to wind it up. I had really great luck with winding up all of the Surrey silk that I used from Emma's. It all wound up beautifully. I'm probably gonna jinx myself. Probably the next one I wind is gonna get all tangled, but it happens sometimes. Every once in a while it'll just get tangled up, but I didn't have that experience at all. It worked fantastically. I used to own a yarn shop, and I used to cringe every time I had to wind up lace, because sometimes they would get tangled, but these ones have been working out great. And I do think some of it has to do with the fact that I know a little bit better now, so I know to pop them open and spread them out and get them all facing in the same direction before I start winding. So take the time to do that. It'll probably save you a lot of aggravation. Oh, thanks, Mildred. This is a love note sweater. This is actually how I figured out that knitting with mohair isn't my favorite. So I'm hoping to make another one of these that is in Surrey silk. So that is the Surrey silk explanation. Okay, let's talk about needle sizes. In the day 0 pattern notes, you'll see that it calls for a US 5, which is, I never remember my millimeters, forgive me, 3.75 millimeters, or the size to attain your gauge in stockinette stitch. So I find that depending on how stressed I am, I need a 5 or a 6 to reach my gauge in stockinette stitch. If you have enough yarn and you like your gauge a little bit larger, that's fine. It's just a cowl. If you're, if you end up having a little bit larger gauge, you're simply going to end up with a slightly wider cowl that might be a little bit longer. So that's up to you, but if you have enough yarn, it's just generally not a deal breaker. So I don't want anybody, stressing out about this. The other part of the needle recommendation is that you might want to go up a size for your color work. So if you are new to color work, and sometimes even if you're not, I noticed that on one of my test knits that I did for this project, that my color work was tighter than I would like it, probably because I was frantically knitting and trying to get it done. I should have gone up a size. I thought that I would be fine because I usually am, but if I had gone up a size needle, it wouldn't have done that. So that's just something to take into consideration and something that you might want to check, especially if you are new to color work. So just to recap that, find your gauge size needle, and you might want to go up a size on the days that we are doing color work, which isn't every day, and it'll say very clearly in the pattern what day that is. I found that using a 16-inch circular needle was perfect for me. If you prefer to work on DPNs, you can work on DPNs. If you prefer to use the magic loop method, you can do that. The pattern is written so that you can use any needle that you like that allows you to knit in the round. You could also use 2 circular needles to make that work. The other needle requirement is, oh, sorry, I just got reading this question from Angelique. Angelique is asking about sizing up for color work, or in recommending, if I recommend locking floats every so many stitches so that there aren't long floats in the work. Here's the fun news: you aren't going to have to worry about that at all. Okay, you are not going to have to worry about long floats. The color work in this is really fun and easy peasy, so no worries about that. So back to needles. So you're going to need those, your circular needle, and I guess before I explain the rest of this, it might make it easier for you to understand the needle recommendations if you understand the shape of this cowl. So this cowl, it's a moebius cowl, and so a moebius mathematically is considered an object with one surface and one edge. So I tore up this piece of paper to illustrate how we're going to make this. So if you think of this paper as being a tube, so we're knitting in the round, we're knitting a tube of knitting. So when you're done and you lay your cowl flat, the tube will be laying flat like this, and what you're going to do is fold it over on itself and twist it once and seam it together, and that creates a moebius. So it has a little twist in it, which makes it really, there, can you see that? Sorry. It makes it really wearable. It makes it very easy to style. You don't have to fuss with it. You just toss it on. It has a nice little twist. You can move the twist to show off different areas of your work that you like. So again, it's just this flat tube, this tube that we've knit. I know that this is a flat piece of paper, but think about this as your cowl tube. And you're going to fold it over twist it, and then seam these edges together. And don't worry about the seaming part. We're gonna have a tutorial. There's gonna be plenty of videos throughout this knit along to help you get through all of this stuff. We're gonna make it really, really easy and fun. Okay, so Colleen, I see your question about a 24-inch. I think that that's gonna be tight. You might be able to pop it out through some of your stitches and make it work. But the longest needle that I knit this on was it was 19.5 tip to tip. Because, you know, the tube itself, when laid flat, it's about 8 3/4 to 9 inches wide. So that means it's only about 18 inches around max. So an Escher fan, loving the Moebius. I know, it's so fun, right? I get really nerdy about this stuff. It's pretty exciting. Oh yeah, we aren't doing a Moebius cast on. We are doing a provisional crochet cast on, which there are a bunch of different ways to do. If you have a different provisional cast on that you like to use, you know, go for it. I'm pretty sure that any provisional cast on should work, but I actually just made and will be publishing on the blog tonight or tomorrow morning the crochet provisional cast on that I prefer to use. So we'll be doing that on day 1. So it'll be up on the blog by tomorrow at the latest. It'll probably be up tonight. And that way, if you're new to this, you can get an idea of how to do a provisional crochet cast on. It's pretty fun. It's really, really easy. It's much less intimidating than I had always thought it was before I had started using them. So, and that leads me to the reason somebody had asked, why do we need 2 circular needles? And the reason is because at the end of this project, you're going to have the live stitches from the last day of the project, and you're going to pick up the stitches from the provisional cast on from day 1, and that's when we fold it, do the twist, and join them together in a Kitchener stitch. And you need to have your all of those stitches need to be on needles so that we can knit them together. There is a little hack to do that, and what I do sometimes if I don't have enough of the needles laying around, I like to use interchangeable circular needles. So if you're using interchangeable circular needles, this hack will work. You'll also need an end stopper for your cords. So what I like to do is to get a long enough cable to go through when I pick up the provisional cast on from day 1. I just get a really long cable and put an end stopper on it on one end and the needle on the other end, and pick all of the stitches up with the needle, and then the same thing on the other end, so that I have one needle on one end and a stopper on the other end on both ends of the project. I hope that that made sense and that you were able to follow that. So that's why I recommend 2 circular needles, because you'll need them to stitch them back together. Everdina asked if I recommended using a stitch saver to do a provisional cast on. I have seen a lot of videos of people using the stitch savers to do the provisional cast on. Personally, I found it really fiddly and it looked messy, and I had a bit of a hard time figuring out which bits of the yarn were stitches and which were not, and what I was supposed to knit through. So personally, I don't use that method, but I keep seeing that people really enjoy using the stitch saver cords to do things like that. So if you feel like giving that a shot, I say absolutely go for it. It's not that it wouldn't work. It should work. It shouldn't be problematic at all, and it would be great because you could slide your stitches right back, you know, slide your needle right through there. I just found it fiddly. And didn't particularly enjoy it. And I think that, you know, whichever method we're using, all of us, we should be knitting what makes us happy. So this was the method that I found that made me happy, and I am going to include a couple other links to other people's tutorials in case people think that my method is too fiddly, because we all, you know, have different preferences. So I'm going to include some options in there, but I do have a specific video that was made for this project about the crochet provisional cast on. All right. I'm just looking at some more. Oh, thank you, Colleen, for sharing the blog. Vicki, if you scroll down, you'll see that Colleen shared a link to our blog. It's right on our website. So I'm Becky from Nomadic Knits. So it's nomadicknits.com. And we are a knitting magazine, but we're also the home of the world's happiest mystery knit along, 12 Days of Knitmas. So Julia, I saw that you said that you're confused about something, but I don't know what. If you type another comment in there, I'll do my best to answer you. Vicki, yes, this is being recorded and it should show up in the group once we are done. Like I said, I am pretty new to this, so hopefully that's what's going to happen. Angelique, correct. You could also use, if you don't have stoppers, you could also use a different size needle on the other end. Like say you only had 2 size 5s, then yeah, absolutely, you know, stick as big a one as you have on there to help keep your stitches in place while you're doing the Kitchener. So, you know, if you have some size 10s or whatever, that'll fit on the other side, great. And if not, just put on whatever size you have. That'll absolutely work. Julia, oh, the double needle part. Okay, so that it was, the double needle is because you're going to, at the end of this project, once you've knit your tube for your cowl, you're going to pick up all the stitches that were provisionally cast on day 1. They're going to need to be on one needle. And then at the other end, those stitches are going to need to be on another needle so that we can then knit those ends together. And it's going to form a seamless join so that you won't even be able to tell where your cowl begins and ends. So that's why you need 2 needles. And once we get to that section, I will also make a video for that to help explain. Vicki, if your friends are part of the group, I believe that this is only going to be available in the group. So if they're part of the group, they should be able to go back and listen. So yeah, Kitchener is a super useful tool. So one of my favorite things about Knitmas is sharing techniques and tools that people might find intimidating on their own, but making it simple enough and tiny enough that they are willing to take the leap and give it a shot. Because I find that what happens is once you've tried it and you've stepped through it with a bunch of other people who are also trying it for the first time, it expands your world as far as knitting goes, because then you can look at patterns and you don't immediately see that it says Kitchener stitch in it and then bypass it. You get to, you know, maybe give that pattern a chance now because you gave it a shot and worked through it. So hopefully that's something that you can take away from the Knitmas experience. You could potentially use the 5 and 6 together. I think that they should be the same size, but I think that you could probably be fine with mixing and matching at that point. I think that should work. I mean, they're pretty darn close. So it would be ideal if you can get the same size needles, but I think you could make it work. Vicki, if this should be showing in the the Nomadic Knits Knit the World Facebook group. So I believe that if you are seeing this video that you are already in the group. If you are not, then you should search for the Nomadic Knits Facebook group and join, because that's where all the fun happens for Knitmas. All right, let's see what else. I think that that pretty much covers most of the technical questions that I had come in about Knitmas. Another thing that I wanted to quickly chat about is how this works once we get going. Hopefully you are all signed up for the emails. If you have not signed up for the emails, you should definitely do that, because they are, that's where I release clues through the emails, also on Ravelry and also on the blog, but the emails also contain freebies and promotional stuff from our sponsors. So we have a bunch of fabulous collaborators, people that we worked with over the years, and at Knitmas time, they join us and contribute to the whole Knitmas experience. So each day you get your clue for Knitmas in the email, but you also get links to free patterns or printables or recipes, discounts on patterns, buy one, get ones. Really, we have some really fantastic discounts from indie dyers this year. Just like fantastic stuff. And we also have some beautiful prizes that people have donated. I can't wait to start sharing them with you. But all of those freebies and discounts show up. I still have yarn stuck to my hand. They show up in the emails. So if you haven't signed up for that list yet, it is, if you go to the nomadicknits.com website, and you'll see in the very top bar, it says hashtag 12 days of Knitmas mystery knit along. That page explains everything. It is the perfect place to go if you have questions pop up, because it has a lot of information in there and tells you exactly how you're going to get your clues and what's going to happen. So email is a fantastic way to get them. Ravelry will be updated daily. That doesn't happen automatically, so that means that I have to manually do it every morning. So I never give an exact time. I always say that that's going to happen like between 8 and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so New York time. And the blog is also going to contain the clues. So if you have any glitches with email or tech issues, that's the easiest way to make sure that you get your clue for the day. So to use the blog for directions. Hi, Billy. Facebook link to Nomadic Knits. I'm not sure what you mean by that. There is no set Facebook link, I don't believe, in the group. Basically, if you want any information, if you go to nomadicknits.com and select the blog, the most recent information is always going to be at the top of the page, but you'll be able to quickly scroll through and find whatever it is you're looking for. If you missed a day, if you missed a tutorial, it's all going to be in there. But that's the other great thing about the emails, is that every day all of those links are included. Okay. Oh, I see what you say, Billy. The same way that you got to this. No, I don't think that it's going to be the same, because this is just on. This is all on Facebook. This isn't related to our website at all. So if you want to find that data, you definitely want to go to nomadickknits.com and then select the blog. Thanks so much for being here, Maureen. I appreciate it, and thanks for bringing friends. Yeah, I would love to do a Zoom together. Hopefully I can figure out how to make that happen. I'm taking technological leaps here, and thanks for being a good sport about helping me wade through it. All right. What else? Okay, so that's how you're going to get the clues. Email, Ravelry, or the blog. Every day in the Facebook group, I will be posting a little image, and it will, say, welcome to day 1 of Knitmas. So what we try to do, and it is not a perfect solution, but what we try to do is to keep the spoilers to a minimum. So we suggest that people post images of their works in progress under those posts, so in the comments. So instead of sharing a picture of your work from that day or from like days 1 through 6, if you either use a spoiler image first, which was, I included a spoiler image that I created in the email that just went out this evening. So you can either use that and make your own post and then put all of your photos underneath it, or you can just comment below in the day's post, so like day 1 of Knitmas. That helps to eliminate some of the spoilers, but depending on what device and browser you're using for Facebook, sometimes comments are immediately shown, and there's unfortunately nothing that we can do about that. And also, because there's so many of us and not everybody sees all of the same information, not everybody knows that that's the system that we're trying to work with. So sometimes, we're all excited and we want to share our stuff, so sometimes people just share and you're going to end up seeing spoilers. If that's something that really bums you out and you really don't want to see spoilers, I've created a thread over on Ravelry. It is a no spoilers thread, so that way you have a place to go and chat, but you don't have to worry about spoilers. There is also, if you just prefer Ravelry, there's a spoilers and a no spoilers thread. So if you're okay with spoilers and you want to see everybody's beautiful work, you can go in the spoilers thread. And if you want to keep that mystery alive, you use the no spoilers thread. Barbara asked if you're using a kit, if I have suggestions for which ones to use for CC1 through CC6. Nope. You are footloose and fancy free. I chose all of the colors because they work together beautifully and create a mood. But it is up to you how you want to paint with those colors. So basically, I picked your crayons and you get to decide how you want to color with them, which is what makes it yours. So I do let you know each day approximately how many grams of yarn are going to be used for each contrast color or each contrast color section, to help you gauge your usage and so that you will know if you have enough. Okay. So I'm still just going through some of these questions. Yes, there is. We just talked about that. Yes, there is the Ravelry group. So it's Nomadic Knits. If you look up Nomadic Knits as a group, you'll see that there are discussions underneath, and you can join whichever one makes you happy. It is not too late to get kits. We still have kits. Go to nomadicknits.com and they're available there. Does the main color make a difference? You're using a dark main color. Actually, one of the kits that I put together is the first one that I knit was has a dark color as the main color, and I love it. So it's totally personal preference. As long as you have contrast colors that you can see and that work well with that dark main color, absolutely. Okay, Angelique was asking about if I have any sense of where the most members or most activity is taking place. I think that's what you mean, Angelique. Hopefully I'm interpreting that correctly. The Facebook group is definitely the hotbed of activity. We have a lovely group over on Ravelry as well. We've been talking for a few weeks. I'm not in there as much. So just so you know, if you have interacted with anybody at all up to this point, during Knitmas, it's me. It's just me. So I don't have any moderators or admin or anything like that. It's just me. So most of my time is concentrated in the Facebook group because it is where the most activity is. But I do peek my head in there and over in Ravelry and to look at everybody's yarn and see how they're doing and make sure that, you know, if they have questions, they're getting answered. So most activity is happening here on Facebook, but that could change because who knows? People could just get really excited and want to be over on Ravelry. Hi, Lou! Oh, I'm so glad that you're here. Lou was one of our test knitters and was a huge help in developing this year's pattern. So I'm so glad you're here, Lou. Thank you for all that you do. Am I going to be at Vogue Live in New York? I am not. I am probably going to sleep for a year after we wrap up Knitmas. No. Maybe just a month. I would love to go down there. It's been a few years since I've been to Vogue, but it's super fun. Are you going? Are you going, Everdina? I'm just reading, sorry. Hopefully you guys know that when you get this really intense close-up of my face that I'm just leaning in because I can't see very well. And making sure that I'm not missing anything. I'm so glad that there's a bunch of you joining into the Facebook group this year that didn't do it last year. It really is fun. It's just so inspiring to see everybody's projects as they work up and to see everybody's growth. Like, that's my favorite part, you know, people that are just like taking the plunge and being brave and, you know, trying stuff that they thought was going to be really, really intimidating and then just crushing it and doing such a beautiful job. Like, it's awesome. Okay. I think that's all the questions. Oh, Heather, how big of a change is it to use fingering instead of the fuzzy lace? It's going to change, you know, some of the texture and some of the feel of your finished project, but it's absolutely fine. It's going to be great. Like there are a lot of people that are opting for fingering, and one of the reasons that we generally choose fingering weight yarn for this project is because that is what people generally have a lot of in their stash, and like we really want everybody to be able to participate, you know. So you know, we all, I shouldn't say we all, a lot of us fall in love with a special skein of yarn, you know, every place we go, and then we end up with a lot of special pieces of, you know, skeins of yarn that we don't have any idea of what to do with, and I feel like this is like their time to shine. So we choose fingering because generally it seems to be what people have the most of available to them. So absolutely, fingering is going to work great. Yeah, and Lou test knit this up in DK, and hers turned out beautiful. So I always say, you know, like I just said, it's just me. So as far as answering specific modification questions, it's tough for me to do that. But if you are, you know, if you're a confident knitter and you're really enthusiastic, enthusiasm can get you really far, then I say, go for it. Give it a try. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You can use yarn twice. So if it doesn't go the way that you planned, then, you know, rip it out and start over. So, Colleen, Team Sloth for the win. That's the other thing. We love our turtles and sloths around here. Take your time. This is about having fun. Don't rush. The whole point is to enjoy your knitting and to wind down at the end of the year, and also to try some new things. Maybe, you know, conquer some mountains that you didn't think you could, and go into the new year feeling confident and good. And, you know, like if you can accomplish learning a new skill, you know, by the first week of January, you're unstoppable. It's going to be a great year. So we're going to kick off the new year right together, doing what we love. I'm so glad that you're all here. I think that I've gotten through the questions, the most pertinent things, and I know that you've all got stuff to do, and I'm just so grateful that you know, took the time to be here, and that you're taking the time to be here for the 12 days of Knitmas. I'm really excited. Only 4 more sleeps till Knitmas. So, you know, keep checking in on one another and sharing your colors and asking your questions, and I'll do my best to get to all of them. And everybody have a fantastic Christmas, a fantastic holiday, however you celebrate or don't. I hope it's filled with joy. And I will see you all on Knitmas. Talk soon.